I feel the vibrate on the wrist, which usually means we are good to go. No streaming issues this morning for myself and Jake, so we're feeling pretty comfortable. Talking process, going to look a little bit at baseball, and then we're going to focus a little bit more on NFL Week 3. It's good to have this interaction back. Haven't done a process show with you in a while. Laffy, what's going on?
It's good to have you back, man. Hopefully everything's beginning to settle down.
Things are settling down. We got word. We had 2 trees down in the front yard, and our neighbor's company is sending people around to do tree removal for free. So they're coming and gonna get all the trees removed that need to be removed. So super awesome. Thanks, neighbor's company that I don't know off the top of my head.
How's the property though in terms of your house?
Our house is totally fine. We had a little bit of water damage in the ceiling of our media room, and it's just like a light stain on the ceiling. So it's obviously something that we need to get dealt with, but other people that don't have roofs in general are probably the priority, whereas ours is just some sort of small leak that you wouldn't notice it probably if you just walked into the house and came into the room, but I spotted it immediately. Other than that, perfectly fine. Not a single issue.
Good to hear. Yeah, because all I was seeing was that like parts of Wilmington were in dire straits.
Yeah, and there still are lots and lots of parts of Wilmington that are in dire straits. It's going to be a while before the city recovers. Sad.
Yeah, I mean
Sad.
there were parts talking about like the worst is still yet to come. The rivers are cresting, and this was just like yesterday. So yeah,
it's just everything
it's
down here
pretty
is at sea level. So anytime the tide comes in, it pushes up river levels by
right.
like multiple feet, and they're already high.
Right.
So anytime it comes up, it's just any sort of like low level bridge over water. The bridge is just gone.
Yeah, it's pretty miserable, man.
Yeah.
I'm just glad everyone's safe and you're back to talk some football.
You and me both, man.
Hopefully more football than baseball at this rate.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about other than hatred in baseball. Not that I didn't hate Cole Hamels enough, considering I have a very contentious relationship with Philadelphia athletes. So I've hated Hamels for a while, and he just put the icing on the cake last night.
Yeah, Hamels doesn't even really like Philly. If I were to guess, like I don't think Hamels really cares a whole lot about Philly. So I don't think you need to
Or maybe I
have
like
much
him then.
hostility there.
Maybe I should
Yeah,
like him.
yeah. Well, or maybe you did like him up until around like 9:30 p.m. Eastern time yesterday.
Yeah, now he's done for me. I'm gonna go burn a Hamels jersey.
Here's the thing. You know that this is when baseball season's starting to get out of hand, when Chris Archer finally puts together a quality performance, when Cole Hamels gets rocked by a legitimate AAA squad. I will tell you this much though. If there was, by the way, I admittedly did not have a good night last night.
Same.
It was, yeah, pitching was fine. Hitting, yeah, had a lot of Toronto, had a ton of the Yankees, which I get out of my hockey game, right? Around like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, nice, 10 runs, we're rocking now. And it was like all Luke Voigt. I had some Andujar, but like none of the other guys decided that they're like, oh, we'll let Luke shoulder the load tonight. But the one thing is, I didn't have much Carrasco at all. And it was I'm like, okay, well, my night's over early. But I
Nope.
faded for Walker Buehler, and then he gives up 2 runs in the first because of an error, throws like 35 pitches in the first. But man, this kid, he ended up with like 12 strikeouts in 6 innings and no earned. Walker Buehler is legit, man.
He's good.
I was one, yeah, for a while I was wondering whether or not he'd be able to sustain the strikeouts. But he's actually improved upon his swinging strikes. The fastball has the second highest whiff per swing rate in the league behind Jacob deGrom, and his curveball is nasty. Like Walker Buehler is the truth.
There were 8 guys that scored over 20 fantasy points yesterday. Pitching. We're not even counting Estrada and Philmeyer at 18 and 17, which you would have absolutely taken before the day started.
Sure.
Jakob Bonus put up 14.6 in
and he only pitched
innings.
like 3 or 4 innings. Yeah.
Bueller
Unbelievable.
34, Carrasco 30, Ray 30, Archer 30, Severino 25, Gio 25, Brett Anderson 22. Here I was thinking that, oh, I'm going to get some leverage on the field, get some Cole Hamels. 1.5. Asshole.
Yeah, he was him and Robbie Erlin. I know, man. I know. Seriously, just batters yesterday. I mean, I'm sure some people did well. People had to do well. But even when like I was high on Milwaukee, they ended up mounting 7 runs on Harvey, but it wasn't Travis Shaw, it wasn't Mike Moustakas.
Yeah.
Christian Yelich was fine because he's always fine, but it ended up being a bunch of righties that did the damage.
Chris Owings, 26 points, third highest score, clearly.
Dear God.
Patrick
That's just not
Kivlahan,
right.
the $2,100 first baseman for the Diamondbacks last night, like the 8th leading scorer on the entire slate, who's owned at like 40% or something stupid.
It's just not right. It is just not right.
So, in our Slack chat, Adam actually is bringing up the idea that maybe stacking isn't as beneficial now at the end of the season. Teams are bringing in a lot more people late in the games, so we might not have the same sort of upside for an individual team. And I think, and I guess a couple of the main tournaments over the past few days have been showing a very large lack of stacking near the top. I'm going to have a hard time getting away from one big stack, but I feel like I shouldn't have any sort of like secondary team stack any longer. And it should just be a series of one-offs or potentially like multiple two-mans, like a 4-2-2 on DK. I don't know what to think about it right now.
Yeah. It's tough because like you could take the last 4 days or something and be like, all right, well, nobody's won stacking teams and maybe have like a very legitimate point.
Yeah.
But baseball also just has so much variance that like even late in the season, you, I don't know if it's a strategy that I'm going to say like, okay, I'm done stacking teams because the moment I stop stacking them, 7 stacks are going to go off
Sure.
and win tournament. So I don't know. I mean, like yesterday, yesterday I don't think had much to do with late season baseball. I'll explain quickly. Marco Estrada just had a good game. That just had nothing to do with it being September. He was just oddly good. Um,
Yeah.
the same thing with Milwaukee. Like it wasn't that they didn't put up runs. It was the guys that were putting up runs were guys that were the lowest or least popular players from the team. Same thing with the Yankees. Luke Voigt had what 2 home runs
Yeah.
and 17 RBIs. So I I I definitely feel like there's some logic to that argument, but I also think recently it just had stacks just haven't worked, and I don't know if that's because it's September or they just haven't worked because it's baseball.
That's a very good point. I'm wondering if we should be thinking more in terms of weather, where you go through July and August and you become, very fixated on bats because so many teams are going to be in hitting weather. And now that we're circling towards the end of September, maybe we should be reprioritizing pitching and then differentiating more with our stacks, since it could conceivably tighten the spread of like outlier performances. So you're more likely
Yeah,
to have crazy run scoring games in July and August with higher totals. We were getting like 12 and a half game totals in Texas and everything. Whereas now it seems like that's backed off. And if the spread of hitting games is not as extreme, I feel like I just want to have a couple teams that I'm way heavier on instead of trying to get like little shares of everything.
yeah, I don't hate it. And I don't disagree that reprioritizing pitching would make sense here. I mean, if you are of the mindset that stacks are not going to win tournaments right now, then you pretty much have to prioritize pitching because otherwise it doesn't make much sense. Like you're saying, stacks don't win tournaments, which would in turn mean that you don't see hitting as much of a necessity as it would have been. And what I mean by that is paying up to the top for it. So, I mean, yeah, the problem is, I mean, so you have Max Scherzer on this slate tonight, um, which I was pretty stoked to see him only put up 2 fantasy points last time, not gonna lie. Uh, Against the Mets, a Mets team that Zach Eflin just tossed 9 strikeouts against in what, 5 innings yesterday and had been terrible up until that point,
Yep.
or at least pretty rough. Yeah, he had 9 strikeouts. Aaron Nola, who had been struggling in terms of home runs, still goes out 2 runs, 9 strikeouts again. Like, this team is striking out a ton right now. The Mets are not a good baseball team. So, yeah, if you're not prioritizing stacks, you're looking at Scherzer and you're saying, "I'm gonna fit him in and I'm gonna work this team around him," but he has to be a priority if that is your mindset.
Yeah. And then I think now more than ever, making adjustments based on ownership on the hitting side is sort of the place that I want to be. Like the Rays today, we have at 12% aggregate ownership on DraftKings. It's the fourth highest team. Nats, Indians, Tigers are the top three, and then the Rays are fourth. I basically don't have them at all today. And I just feel like I'm not really confident that, there's probably like 10 teams that I think could have similar outlooks. I just want to be over the field on the ones that everyone else has at this point. And I know that's kind of like my thought process previously, but now with all of these lower run totals, I'd rather just pick my spots in like a more efficient manner. I don't want to be on an over-owned Rays team. I don't like that. I'm just good there. I'd rather have twice the field of the Yankees.
I don't blame you. I'd rather have twice the field of like Atlanta against Vince Velasquez.
Sure.
Yeah.
Atlanta 10% total ownership. Not like aggregate. Like if you add everyone's individual exposures together, it's just 10. So like less than 1% aggregate.
Yeah, that's low.
Like they're going to be the top. How many teams are playing today? 14. They're going to be the top stack. Like way more than that ownership lets you on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Velasquez has surprisingly not allowed like any power outside of Citizens Bank Park. It's really strange. Only 4 home runs this season outside of Citizens Bank Park. But you look at the guy recently and he's just not been good. He's struggling, he can't get through games. And what you're seeing, I mean, not even kidding here, there's a very good chance that he doesn't get out of like the 4th or 5th inning. And then, you're gonna have a bunch of long men. You're gonna not a bunch, you'll have a long reliever or Kepler throw a guy in there that is struggling. And I do think Atlanta is an interesting team here at a park that definitely favors left-handed hitters. So, yeah, I'm with you. And plus, Sam Gaviglio is not terrible.
Yeah.
Like he's not good, but he's also not a guy that is just a pure gas can that's going to get rocked every time he goes out there. He's also had some very wild splits home and away. Take it for what you will, but much, much, much more efficient at home. Actually striking out a batter per inning, more than a batter per inning at home. And we've seen quality starts from him at the Rogers Center in a bunch of his last few, right? Like 1, 2, 2 of his last 3, 3 of his last 5 have been very solid outings there. I have no problem getting away from Tampa stacks when we already know that they'll burn you all the time anyway. Like they did it at Globe Life, man. That Tampa stacks were super popular. They had the highest expected run total 2 straight days, and they shit the bed. So it's no thinking that they can't do it against Gaviglio.
Oh, absolutely. And it's all about the roster construction. If we're projecting Max Scherzer at 56% today, we have the Tigers as the chalkiest stack of the day. And that's solely because of Max Scherzer.
Yep.
I want no part of that. I don't need 30% owned James McCann. I don't need 27% owned V-Mart.
No, you don't need any of that. I mean, again, I'm just trying to figure out how much of it has to do with, it's late in the season because a lot does change. You just think of basketball. like your approach has to change significantly late in the season when it
Yeah,
comes to the NBA because half the teams are out of the playoff race. They're starting guys that are terrible, but they're playing 40 minutes a game, and starting at the point, and you have to play them even though they're not good because minutes and usage are there. Uh, the same thing with baseball. The league changes. Teams stop, running out the strongest. Like with Arizona, we saw it yesterday. It didn't work the way you were wanting it to. The adjustments that you would make in that case actually worked against you, but um, adjustments have to be made. It's just how many tweaks are necessary before you're overthinking it. And I think on a slate like this, Max Scherzer is just a really good play. There's no denying that. Um, and some of these teams are in really good spots, but at the same time, I'm with you. Tampa Bay is not necessary, especially, let's say Adams right. Let's say stacking right now is not, and I'd like to get his full thoughts on this, not just that, the last 3 or 4 days stacks haven't won, but if
sure.
he has a belief of really why this is happening. But because I do think variance plays a large role in it too. Teams late in the season are still going to go out there and shell opposing pitchers and bullpens. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, the White Sox face Josh Tomlin, man. This guy is a home run machine.
So what you're
So,
telling me is I shouldn't have 30% Josh Tomlin today?
I mean, honestly, it's not the craziest thing you could do,
He
but
used to
this
be
guy,
good once.
yeah, he had a season there. He
Yeah.
did. He had a season there. And then he's allowed like 30 plus home runs in every other season.
Yeah. I'm just now I'm starting to see how I like this slate. Like if the Tigers are going to have 16% aggregate ownership and the Reds who have a very similar amount of salary are going to be 1/3 of that ownership against what is it, Jeff Brigham? Yeah. I'm just going to play the Reds and hope that Schebler and Peraza and Votto and Suarez and Jeanette, guys with actual pulses, can give me the leverage on the field instead of paying for a 30% owned VMart. What are the chances 30% owned VMart is a good thing for you today? Like zero.
Never. I can't ever imagine VMart being that high owned. VMart's terrible. For me, it's like where am I going? Where am I going? Well, actually, you know what? We had a question in chat asking about Cody Reed. What are your thoughts on Cody Reed here? Because he's facing Miami. Um, he is at Marlins Park. He's coming off of a very solid 10 strikeout outing. Pretty much can assure ourselves that Cody Reed's going to be very popular tonight.
Projected 19% ownership. Sam Gaviglio projected 41. I have the opposite right now. I have 41% Cody Reed. I'm twice the field on Reed.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's only 20% owned. If Cody Reed were 40% owned, I'd probably not feel the same way. But I'd rather be less on Brigham and Gaviglio and more on Reed because I don't really see the difference in any of these dudes.
No, just go up the list. Vargas, garbage. I know. Look, I
Tough
know
matchup
Vargas.
too.
Yeah, I know Vargas has actually looked better lately. I get it. I understand this, and so I don't want to go too far here. But like I can. And the funny thing too, I remember being like, dude, load up on Washington bats against Vargas last time he played him.
Yeah, he spun a gym.
He lit them up.
What was the line? I have it here.
Six scoreless with 8 strikeouts and 32 DraftKings points.
Yeah.
But dude, you kidding me?
His last 3 starts have been Nats, Cubs, and Dodgers. 2 of them went really well, and then he got
Sheldon
hit with the flamethrower against the Dodgers.
Dude, I just can't buy into it. I can't buy into it.
No, but if Sam Gaviglio is 41% and Jason Vargas is 2, I'd probably want to have 6% Jason Vargas and a little bit less of Gaviglio.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no question, and it's kind of wild. Like his swinging strike rate over those 3 good starts is 13, 12.5, and 15.5.
Wow,
that's kind of ridiculous
for him.
So Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for any pitcher, those are pretty good numbers, but I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, just so we're clear here, Jason Vargas, um, is throwing an 85-mile-per-hour fastball. He's not he's not bringing the heat, and I guess he doesn't need to. We know that if there's one thing about him is he just, heavily uses that changeup. I'm curious now. All right, so let's see. When did the quality start happening? Okay, it was right around
Just to
that
touch on that 85-mile-an-hour fastball, I hit 81 on the Citizens Bank gun when I was still in college.
Did you? Okay, so you could probably replace Jason Vargas right now, and no
Well,
one would know
I
the
don't have
difference.
that 81 in there anymore. I have it for maybe one, and then it's gonna
Yeah.
feel like I threw my arm out. I was
Well,
low
I'm a
70s in Atlanta 4 years ago, and after I got
low
married,
70.
and
All
I have
right.
not aged well in those past 4 years of married life.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm
Lot
a
more
le
going on in the midsection that doesn't really let
right?
me torque that core.
Yeah. I'm a lefty, so maybe I could pass. Um, yeah, but dude, the changeup over the last 2 months has a 42% whiff per swing rate, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, he is, he's doing something there, but it's Vargas has always had a really good changeup.
Yeah.
I'll give him that, but I dude, I still look at it and I'm like, you're Jason. I can't imagine that he has just fully transformed into a entirely different pitcher. You know, the guy's 35 years old. He's been in the league since like 1974, and now I and now, I mean, not that long, what, a 2005, but still that's a decent amount of time. He's not a hard thrower, so it's not as bad, maybe he can Jamie Moyer a few more years out of, his career. But, like, you see these last 3 Miami, okay, the Cubs, well, and then Washington, those aren't exactly the toughest starts or the easiest matchups. So maybe Vargas goes out and tosses a gem, but I'm betting on Washington coming to play in this one. I expect there's just Josh, there's just too many good hitters on this team. It's hard for me to believe that Vargas is going to shut them down twice in 1 month when you have like Rendon and Ryan Zimmerman, who's when he gets hot, he generally stays hot for a little while.
Excellent
Soto
against
hits
lefties.
lefties. Yeah, excellent against lefties. And so is Rendon. Rendon murders lefties.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This just seems like a lineup that I'm not looking to pick on really, but I don't know. Maybe Vargas spins another gem. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that my entire process tonight, outside of the Indians, who have an implied total just miles above everybody else, I think they're sort of in a spot on their own from a bats perspective. But I think that I'm just gonna play like the ownership game on DK and go. We're projecting the Yankees to have 6% aggregate. I've got 13 right now. Love it. I want to be double on the Reds. I want to have basically no Rays. Like all these teams that are going to get a ton of ownership today, that like they're just everybody's sort of like the same shade of gray for me. So I'm just
Yeah.
gonna play the leverage game, hope one of them hits, and hope for the best because everything else that I've been doing over the past 6 weeks, not really going that great.
Yeah, not working. And I don't see myself going with like Detroit, a ton of Detroit here. Detroit
The
never
chalk,
works.
the chalk stack of the day, just because of
Exactly.
Max Scherzer. You just get
Yeah.
different right there and find a different team to stack
Yep.
other
Yep.
than the Tigers with Max Scherzer, and you're golden.
Ask yourself when Detroit Tigers as chalk worked for you. Like, I obviously don't ask yourself that because it won't do you any favors for tonight, but it very seldom is a chalk Detroit stack going to win you tournaments. That's all I'm saying. It's really not. Like, James McCann has a sub 300 WOBA. Um, Victor Martinez, outside of that stretch where he had like 3 home runs in 2 days, is completely devoid of power. The it's not happening. It's not like if they're chalk to me, they're an easy fade. I'd much rather who are you seeing as the top 5 highest owned teams?
It's Tigers are first, Nats and Indians are second and third, depending on which order. I don't know. It's like they're both at 14%. The Rays are then at 12% aggregate, and then there's a pretty steep drop off to the Royals at 9%.
Okay, so that means that I can look at the White Sox against Tomlin,
Yep.
who is giving up an unbelievable amount of home runs. Granted, we'll have to see if that continues. He did make a start last week, though, and not out of the bullpen. He threw 62 pitches. He's probably going to be more stretched out for this one, but he did give up a home run, and that was against a bad Detroit team.
Yep.
So you have the White Sox. There's a team that you can consider just right out of the gate. You have Atlanta, risky, sure, but Atlanta's got just good enough hitters to where I don't mind taking that route.
They're literally not owned. I mean, you can basically make, if you play 150 lines and you put 7 of them as Braves, you're miles above the field.
And they're good hit. Like, many of them are good hitters. So you're not just playing shit hitters that because they're unowned. You're at least playing guys that are talented. You know what I mean? There's a big difference there. Like, when I think the first time you and I did the process show several weeks back, we talked about Boston. Like,
yeah,
less about the matchup, more about them just being completely overlooked. And they ended up putting up 8 or 9 runs, doing a lot of the damage in the latter innings of the game, just because they're Boston and they're good. And eventually, you'll get that payoff. So yeah, I think Atlanta is a team in that respect that I'm willing to target. Also, by the way, Kevin Gossman is somebody that I will definitely have interest in pairing with Scherzer tonight. Do you have his ownership right with you? I pulled up right there.
What's your guess
on Gossman?
Yeah, I have it all here.
So if I were to look at if I'm looking at the other pitchers to see where the ownership's coming in, there's not.
And I'll give you other names if you want other ownerships just for reference.
Now hold on, because you had Cody Reed around 19. Scherzer's got to be it, dude. Scherzer's probably showing at like 60 or something right now, something ridiculous.
56 for Scherzer right now. Actually, I think we had another update since I've updated, or since I entered it this morning, but I don't get the sense that they changed all that dramatically.
All right, so Gossman, I don't know, 24?
26 from what I had previously.
All right, so I'm pretty close. Okay.
Let me make sure.
Yeah, kind of high, but I think he still warrants consideration in this spot.
Yeah. 23 is the updated number right now.
So I was one off. All right. What's Scherzer's updated?
55.
Damn it. Okay, 5 off, but we'll take it. Matt Boyd, I wish he wasn't egregiously expensive, because
third most expensive pitcher on the slate.
Isn't that silly? I honestly, like, Tanaka I would consider against Boston. It's obviously a really tough spot, but he's not gonna there's no way people are playing Tanaka. So yeah, there are ways to do it, like even Erod or something like that, who's been pitching pretty strong of late. Like, there are some good pitchers that'll have low ownership, but I wonder if it's necessary. I don't know. This slate sucks.
Yeah, like, to me, now that I'm looking at this, if I'm going to play Max Scherzer, and I'm clearly going to play Max Scherzer, this is a very, very unique matchup for him today on this slate. No one else even remotely close to his ability. I told Jake earlier, and I'll tell you now, I have him as a 65% chance to be one of the top 2 scoring pitchers on DraftKings. The next closest guy is at 20%. He's just like he's on an island.
Yeah. No, he is on. It's not even close. It's not even close today.
And now the Tigers are going to have a ownership of essentially 1/5 of all the lineups. And that's basically just because of Scherzer. No one's playing someone else and the Tigers. If I'm playing Max Scherzer, I'm just going to uncheck the Tigers stack box.
Pretty much, yeah. And then you must ask yourself, is it even worth not playing Scherzer?
Sure. Has to be.
It always is, but like, okay.
Depends how many lineups you're playing.
So, honestly, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I will be shocked if Scherzer does not have 30+ fantasy points today.
I think that's a very safe statement.
However, that doesn't mean that other pitchers can't also have good games. It doesn't mean that Tanaka
can also have 30.
Exactly. You want to talk about an enigmatic pitcher. He is as enigmatic as they come. You don't know what's going to come from Masahiro Tanaka whenever he's on the mound. But his last two starts in matchups that have not been particularly easy. Seattle is not a high strikeout team. He went 8 scoreless with 10 Ks. Toronto, a very pesky team, 6 scoreless with 8 Ks. He's been and even the start before that, 7 1-run innings with 6 strikeouts against Detroit. Tanaka right now looks like the best he has all season.
Yep.
I'm not just saying. If you're of the same mindset as Josh and myself, and you're like, look, man, maybe I got to do something different towards the end of the year. It's not entirely unrealistic to look at a Tanaka and say, you know what? Screw it, man. He's literally going to have a fraction of the ownership of Scherzer, a fraction. I mean, it won't even be in the same stratosphere.
We have him at 7%.
Right. Right. Like that's 7 and 55%.
Yep.
You know, if Tanaka goes for 28 and Scherzer goes for 30, you're perfectly hell. If
you're
Scherzer
happy.
goes for if Scherzer goes for 30 and Tanaka goes for 24, you're perfectly fine.
Yep. Because you got an extra $2,300 to not have the Detroit Tigers in your stack.
Exactly. And can Tanaka go for 24 against Boston? He can. Is it probable? You know, could he get rocked? Absolutely. But he's also a really skilled pitcher with amazing strikeout stuff, and annually or perennially has one of the highest swinging strike rates in baseball. When he's channeling that, he's a boss. So yeah, Masahiro Tanaka to me, as crazy as it may sound, makes perfect sense if you want to get away from the chalk. And the thing is, you made a good point. Getting away from the chalk, getting away from Scherzer means also getting away from Detroit. So there's going to be an outlandish amount of Scherzer Detroit stacks out there today. And what is the fun in doing that when everyone's going to be doing the same thing?
I just ran 150 lineups where all I did was uncheck Detroit as a 5-man stack. And you get, like, just based on my projections and making no other changes, tons of the Royals, tons of the Reds. These are teams that are not getting any real ownership. But
yep.
I'd rather be double on the Reds and double on the Royals than equal to the field on the Tigers.
Yeah, you're damn right.
What's the point? You need a very specific outcome of like really shitty Tigers to play well with Scherzer for this to be the spot.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. I am also, you know, not to get too off track here, but I'm also not against stacking the Phillies because now, you know, you have Gossman. Is Gossman the second highest projected pitcher right now in ownership?
Third behind Gaviglio and Scherzer.
Wait, Gaviglio's second?
41% for Gaviglio.
What? Wow.
That's why this is all happening. It's Scherzer naturally paired with one cheap guy. You know, it's Reed and Brigham and Gaviglio, whatever, but Gaviglio seems to be the guy. So the predominant pairing, let's see, at those ownership rates, was that 0.55 and 0.41? At those ownership rates, the 22% chance, so basically one in like every 4.5 lineups is Scherzer Gaviglio, and almost assuredly with the Tigers.
I can't play Gaviglio at that price. Or at that ownership, I can't.
If you want to use Scherzer, you either have to make sure you don't have Gaviglio or make sure that you don't have the Tigers. If you're playing Scherzer, Gaviglio, and Tigers, you're probably in a 50-50.
I would go with Cody Reed instead.
Yeah.
Half the ownership over. Like, dude, listen, Gaviglio's not bad. He's better at home. He's not terrible. And I actually, the truth is, at 4,900, he's not a bad play. He really isn't. He's perfectly fine. But you're pigeonholed into doing the exact, like, Scherzer, Gaviglio, and then whoever else. I guess the thing, if you do have Gaviglio with Scherzer, you don't have to stack Detroit. So that makes it at least
that's what I'm going to do for my Scherzer stuff, is just not have the Tigers with him at all.
Yep. Michael Wilmot asks, why even fade Max when you can just play him with low owned stacks? No, you don't have. You don't have. That's what we're saying. You don't have to. But we're also saying that Tanaka is at least like if you were going to play Tanaka, Tanaka has the same ceiling as Scherzer. He legitimately does. Like we've seen 45 fantasy point games from Tanaka before. His 2 starts ago, he had a 40 fantasy. So it's and he had a 45 fantasy point game back in July. Like so, if I'm at least if for some reason I wanted to pivot off of Max, I don't mind doing it, Josh, with a guy that I know has a monster ceiling and is going to be a fraction of the ownership because it's baseball. Anything could happen. Max,
Totally.
we think he's going to have a monster game, but it doesn't always matter. Like people thought Kluber was going to have a monster game against Tampa Bay, and he finished with negative points. So anything can happen. That's why we're trying to cover everything.
Yeah, Max could have a 45-point game today, but if
Mhm.
1/5 of the people that have Max have Tiger stacks with him, then they also have to get that right.
Yep.
And that could just submarine you and make that Scherzer play never matter. So I want to have a ton of Scherzer. I'll have him in probably half of my lineups, but I'm going to have him with the Reds and the Royals and some Braves and Phillies and White Sox, like just teams that aren't certainly not the Rays and certainly not the Tigers. And I'll,
Right.
If that goes wrong, then it goes wrong. But I feel like I'm giving myself way more bites at the apple now.
Got to get this win. Says against the Red Sox. Hard disagree. And look, dude, it's not an easy matchup. No one's saying it is, but that's really not where like
Cole Hamels
it's
just got
not
rolled by the Diamondbacks Double-A affiliate, so
right.
anything is happening right now.
Right. And kind of the point of him being 5 to 7% owned is because it's the Red Sox.
Yeah.
So it's built into it. No one's saying that it's a good matchup.
No, not at all.
Just simply that he is one of the highest upside pitchers in baseball. And he's very capable of having a good game against anybody. It's get past looking at just a matchup because any day you can see a guy go out there and toss a gem against a good team. We've seen it against the Yankees on countless occasions just over the past month. Neither Josh nor myself are like, oh yeah, lock Tanaka in the cash games. Of course not. But
no, not at
he's
all.
really good. Yeah.
Look, it gets slept on sometimes, and I'm going to oversimplify what I'm about to say. But like the actual baseball portion of this is like the least important piece of fantasy for me. Knowing someone's salary and having an expectation of how they're owned is more important to me than saying, well, the Yankees are pretty, or the Red Sox are pretty good, so I can't play Tanaka.
So matchup is less important to you than being able to get leverage.
Yeah, because if Tanaka is 25% owned today, it's like, ooh, 25% against the Red Sox.
Right.
Like, that's a pretty tough spot. But if Tanaka is 7% owned, you're like, okay, well, like, the chances of him outscoring Max Scherzer today are probably not the 55-7 ratio that we're getting here on their ownership.
Good point. That's a good way to put it. That's a good way to look at it. Right. The 55. Yep. That's a good way to look at it for sure.
Like, I don't like the matchup at all, but if you knew Tanaka was going to be 1% owned in a tournament, you'd play him a lot more than that because you have that information.
Because even in a tough matchup, what are Tanaka's chances of putting up a 30-plus fantasy point game?
I can give you that answer.
1%. Yeah, let's see it.
And, this is obviously just based on my data and everything, too. So there's stuff to worry about there. So let's say greater than or equal to 30 fantasy points today. I have him doing that in, oh shit, that's way lower than I would have expected. 3.5%. Yeah,
that's low. I think that's low. I think that's too low personally, but just because but if you see that and you buy into it, then you're not playing him, honestly. But just throwing it out there, like Boston still has the second lowest implied run total on this slate. Tanaka is a 158 money line favorite. So it's he's still there's still a 3 point. Let me put it to you this way. When Boston has a 3.8 expected run total, that's very, very uncommon. That's rare. You don't see that even against good pitchers. So
JD Martinez projected 7% ownership on DK. That's the highest in anyone in the Red Sox lineup today.
Yeah.
I just want to have more than that then. Maybe not just for like JD, but If Mookie Betts is 3% owned, I'll figure it out in the pitching somewhere else.
Hey, Tanaka's no stranger to giving up home runs to righties either.
No.
He's going to give up home runs, but he's just looked he's just been spectacular lately. So just throwing it out there. Tanaka right now he looks right now better than he's looked all season long. I'm just pulling something up here. I always like to see, game by game swinging strike rates. My God. 16, 16, 16, 16, 21 over his last 5 starts. That's insane.
I thought the stream was glitching again with all those 16s.
They're all like 15-9, 15-7,
Sure.
but still, that's outrageous.
Yeah.
Like those are his outside swing rate is like above 40% over that span. Outside contacts around like 48. Those are some wild numbers, man. He's just getting a ton, and his first pitch strike rate's up around 80%. So he's locked in right now. That's all I can say. He's totally locked in.
I'm so excited for the Tigers to put up 15 today when I have none of them.
Oh, they will. Yep, Scherzer going to go for 400, and and Gaviglio is going to go for like 28.
Oh, baseball. You want to stop talking about baseball now?
Oh God, I never thought you'd ask.
NFL week 3.
Thought you'd never ask, I should say. Yeah, go ahead.
How owned is Pat Mahomes? Just 100% of lineups at this point?
Dude, he's going to be so popular here. He's going to be like, the guy is, okay, he's thrown 45 passes, okay? He's thrown 45 passes, which means, you ready for this? That Patrick Mahomes has 10 touchdowns. So 45 attempts and 10 touchdown passes.
I feel like that's unsustainable.
He's throwing a touchdown per every 4.5 attempts?
It's like playing Madden on rookie.
Right? Am I wrong? Wouldn't it be per every 4.5 attempts?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
That's insane. That is insane. Like, to act like, come on, you can't sustain that. Now, he's been awesome. Like, he's been really good.
Is he the easiest fade of the weekend?
God. I mean, I want to say yes, but it's so sketchy. Like, you can't keep. Okay, so now he's the second highest priced quarterback on DraftKings. He's pretty much equally priced to Rodgers.
Yep.
And he's going to have massive, massive ownership. In cash, that doesn't matter. Like, just
sure,
do your thing. But yeah, there's no way I can justify loading up on him in tournaments. Like, there's just no way. When, I don't know, he's through 3 weeks, he's got to be the highest. He has to be the highest owned quarterback. Like, if you took all 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
I don't see how he isn't. I just don't.
If he's crazy owned, I want to have a ton of Kirk Cousins.
Sure.
At home against garbage Buffalo, $200 cheaper than Mahomes. Give me all the Kirk Cousins, Diggs, Thielen, whatever Kyle Rudolph, whatever combinations I can get.
Dude, give me Jimmy Garoppolo. Listen, this Kansas City team right now is the best fantasy team that we've seen in a long time, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
You look at just the DVOA over the first 2 weeks. Granted, Football Outsiders doesn't factor in strength of matchup, strength of opponent until after week 4. But right now, the Kansas City Chiefs rank number 1 in offensive DVOA and number 32 in defensive DVOA. That is a recipe for DFS goodness. So, right, you look at their pass defense DVOA. The Kansas City, they rank 29. Run defense DVOA, 24th. They've been mutilated defensively, but offensively, they keep coming. There's like, I will go Garoppolo over Mahomes all day here in tournaments because when you look at, think about this. Has Mahomes had two very solid starts? Absolutely. Now, Josh, think of the quarterbacks that they've played against. He faced Ben Roethlisberger, who finishes the number one quarterback over Mahomes last week in most scoring formats. And the week before that, they faced Phillip Rivers, who threw for 424 yards for 3 touchdowns and would have had 500 yards of Terrell Williams.
I was going to say, if anyone could catch.
Right, and Travis Benjamin didn't drop long touchdowns. So the two opposing quarterbacks that Mahomes has faced have gone for 450, 4 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, and then 424, 3 touchdowns and an interception. So yes, give me all the Jimmy Garoppolo, especially if everyone is going to go with Mahomes. Give me the guy on the opposite side that is facing the right now worst defense in the league that could easily remain the worst defense in the league all season long. I love Garoppolo here.
I agree. Totally agree. I want to be away from the juice of Pat Mahomes. Not that I don't think, like, he's obviously been incredible. I don't want it to come out like I'm some Mahomes hater. He's been awesome. It's been super fun to watch.
Sure.
But there's a difference between, having fun in DFS and playing the logistics game.
And if Garoppolo is going to be a fraction of the ownership, think about this for a second. If Kansas City's offense continues to be this efficient, that means that, and this might sound weird, but that means that Garoppolo probably has a higher ceiling than Mahomes here.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be forced into a lot more volume. And I just have trouble believing that Kareem Hunt is not going to have, any rushing touchdown opportunities, right? Like his only touchdown is a receiving touchdown. Kansas City has no rushing touchdowns. It's all passing touchdowns. You have 10, like, on the opposite side, Garoppolo, if Kansas City remains this efficient, Garoppolo is going to have to do exactly what Rivers and Roethlisberger did, and he's going to be doing it against a highly inferior defensive opponent. So, right now, like, if you were to look at ownership, Garoppolo is going to be above 20. You have to think he's going to be above 20. Or I'm sorry, Mahomes.
Yeah.
And Garoppolo is probably going to be like, I don't know, 5 to 10. So I like that difference a lot. And you're basically, it's still a correlation play. Like if Mahomes has a good game and Kansas City scores a lot of points again, you can almost guarantee that San Francisco is also going to load up on the scoring as well as each of their first two opponents have done.
Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of Jimmy G, Goodwin, and then probably Sammy Watkins lineups.
Oh, yeah. Dude, Watkins I had a lot of Watkins last week, and I didn't have a lot of Hill, but I had a lot of Watkins just because you look at that team and, so there are a few teams that don't, there are like 6 teams this year that are not spreading the ball around. And that's a good thing. Yeah. Like for fantasy purposes, that's a good thing. It's the Steelers, the Giants, the Eagles, the Chargers. There was one more. I can't, obviously the Chiefs, and who was the last? Oh, and the Rams. So those are the only 6 teams that have 2 players or more with a target share or market share of 25% or higher. And there's only 2 teams that have 3 players of 23% or higher, which is important because it shows you that they're focusing heavily on 3 players and that they're going to get work each and every day. Well, one of them is the Rams, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, all at 23% or higher. And then it's the Chiefs with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Sammy Watkins. Those guys are all basically, they're eating up all of the targets. And then outside of that, maybe 1 or 2 go to like Conley or Robinson or Thomas or Hunt, but they're just eating everything up. They're playing all of the snaps. So each week, more so Kelsey and Hill, but Tyreek Hill still has like a 24% market share this year. That's really nice to know that I want a team that isn't spreading the ball around, like Miami is, or like a bunch of these other, bad teams are. It's nice
Patriots.
to know. The Patriots. It's nice to know that you have pretty much assured yourself that the targets are going to go here, here, or here. And even if they go mostly here and here, this guy is still going to get, a decent amount of work as well.
I couldn't agree more, man. Same page. We are on the same page here.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's an interesting slate for sure.
I'm getting excited for it.
So am I.
Like week 2 was not a great week 2 for me. I didn't put in a lot of time for research as I was sitting in my hotel room, and I got bludgeoned just because I worked too fast through everything and wanted to just, jam in lines and watch football because I was away from my home. Now, wife's going to the Panthers game this weekend, so I'm going to sit and do nothing but look at NFL DFS stuff for the entire weekend. And I'm coming hard, and the first stance I'm taking is I want to be on the opposite side of Pat Mahomes. So yeah, like you said, Jimmy G looking mighty tasty if he doesn't get the ownership.
Yeah, damn right. Let me ask you this. Sean V says, don't be afraid of some heavy chalk in tournaments. Last year's Millie Maker Week 1 winner was all chalk except for 2 super low-owned players. What do you say to that?
I don't disagree. Look, chalk is all relative. You don't have to have all 10% owned guys. You don't have to have 7 30% guys and 2% guys. Like, the structure can be sort of whatever you want. I have no problem having guys that are highly owned. But like, if you're in a field with 400,000 lineups, like, you just want to give yourself at least one guy that's going to make it unique enough that you're not overlapping.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake made is people try and go completely off the reservation. Yeah. And they play a lineup that has 9 or 10 guys that, see, when you play a full out contrarian lineup where everyone is single digit ownership, there's a good chance what you're doing is just playing bad plays.
Yeah.
In a bunch of those spots.
It's not even a good chance. You're just 100% wrong.
Right. But here's the thing. At quarterback, and here's the difference between good chalk and bad chalk. Let's say quarterback. The reason I am very willing to play Garoppolo over Mahomes is because there is a very, very realistic possibility that Garoppolo outproduces Mahomes.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that when I say, okay, like, for example, last week, Roethlisberger was going to be chalk, and I played him everywhere because I'm not passing up home Roethlisberger against a bottom tier defense. Like, he's going to put up numbers.
All he does is throw. He's going to throw 45 times, almost assuredly.
Exactly. So that's different. And those are spots that I'm not passing up on. Another example, I don't know what his ownership was last week, but I wasn't passing up on Todd Gurley. I couldn't do it.
Agreed.
Like, it was just too good of a spot to ignore. I am 100% on, referring to Sean's comment, I'm 100% on agreed that certain chalk is good chalk. But when it comes to like a Patrick Mahomes, I feel like Garoppolo can outproduce him, is in the same game, faces a bottom tier defense. And as Mahomes goes, Garoppolo to some extent will go because we know Kansas City's defense is so bad. So those are spots where I think getting the lower owned player actually does give you an edge. Not like last week where you'd say, oh, I'm going to play David Johnson over Gurley, even though he's got a really, really bad matchup, even though the team can't get past the 50. To me, that's a bad pivot. But in this case, I think a Garoppolo pivot actually makes a lot of sense for the reasons that I just pointed out.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, you don't want to have all of the chalk. It's all one big math problem. Just by changing one 20% owned guy to a 5% owned guy, you're exponentially changing. I shouldn't say exponentially because that's not even a true statement, but you're dramatically changing the likelihood that someone else is going to have that lineup. And that's sometimes all you
Mhm.
need to do.
Yep.
You don't
Yep.
want to ignore someone like Gurley last week, for an example. You don't have to ignore him simply because he's chalky. There's a reason he's chalky, and the reason is he is in a very likely scenario to have maybe the most combined touches of anyone in the entire slate with a
Yeah.
guaranteed touchdown potential. Like, he's not like they're taking out Todd Gurley in red zone situations or anything. He
Right.
has very fixed opportunities. And that is what I want to bet on. Guys that have very little. Those are the guys I want to bet on if I'm going with the chalk. Guys that have what look to be a very fixed amount of opportunities. It's the same reason I really like James Conner in week 1. I didn't care that he was chalky. I love the price
Correct.
and the fact
Correct.
that there weren't really many alternatives for him to not have X amount of carries plus potential targets. They were just going to be there, and you're allowed. I can eat that at that price point.
100%, dude. So, Subliminal Productions says Jimmy G. God, I can't speak today.
That's a really
Jimmy
tough
G
thing to
might
say, though.
What, Jimmy G?
No, like getting
Or
to Subliminal Productions, Jimmy G. Like that's a lot of hoops to jump through for your tongue.
It is Subliminal Productions. I want to say projections, but Subliminal Productions. Jimmy G might do well, but will he outscore Mahomes? Well, here we go. Look, I'll give you another example. So in week 1, Patrick Mahomes went 15 for 27 for 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 256 yards, highly efficient, didn't need the yardage, 28 fantasy points. 28 fantasy points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phillip Rivers went 34 for 51, 424, and 3 touchdowns. Needed to throw more. Kansas City, worst defense in the league after 2 weeks. I think it could stay that way. 33 fantasy points. Outproduced Mahomes in the same game. Patrick Mahomes, week 2, monster game, 41.8 fantasy points. Huge game, 6 touchdowns. Ben Roethlisberger, 41.98, outscored Mahomes. So if your question is, can Jimmy G outscore Mahomes? He absolutely can. Yeah. Andrew says Jimmy has no one to throw to. He might have 40 attempts, but there'll be a lot of drop balls or incomplete. Listen, man, this Kansas City defense is really, really, really bad.
Yeah,
like they're really bad. Honestly, generally speaking, it's nice to have quality receivers, no doubt about it. But I mean, like I'm just not that worried.
Dead last in DVOA and defense, Kansas City.
Dead last. Terrible. And number 1 in offensive DVOA. So think about how that game script goes.
Yeah.
Right? If Patrick, you have to, like, plus Kyle Shanahan is not, if they had a garbage offensive coordinator or a garbage head coach, a garbage play caller, then yeah, I'd be a lot more worried. But I personally do have faith that Shanahan is going to figure out ways to move the football, regardless of who is at the helm. So yeah, that's just that's where I stand here, and I think it is easily the best matchup he will draw all season long, and there's a good chance that playing from behind, it just gives him that much more of an edge. So right now, let's see, they are 6.5 point dogs. So I absolutely love that.
So do I. Couldn't love it more. I wish that I could like Rodgers more, but I don't. I mean, his knee is cooked spaghetti right now.
Yeah, it's
seeing the way he was throwing and like not putting weight on it and keeping it off the ground. I would love to have like an unowned Aaron Rodgers if Mahomes is getting it all there, but that's a tough sell for me. Cousins is the guy that I'm looking at quite a bit here.
Yeah,
and then Jimmy G pretty naturally.
Yeah, it's just if like how can you not be on the other side of a game where everyone is on Kansas City, right? And I think justifiably so in many spots. I don't think San Francisco's defense has been that impressive, and I think that they're going to give up points and yards to Mahomes and this Chiefs team. I don't doubt that. Right now, their pass defense DVOA ranks 22nd, run defense DVOA ranks 9th, and Kareem Hunt has already looked, underwhelming to some extent. They haven't really needed him, but you get the point. So if that's the case, like, how do I not take the other side of a game where if we're expecting Mahomes and the Chiefs to jump out ahead from the jump out of the gate, how can I not go on the other side of that? Like, Matthew Stafford last week, they were playing from behind, and Matthew Stafford obviously didn't have a Roethlisberger game, but 350 yards and 3 touchdowns because playing from behind, needing to play catch up, don't have a run game. Boom, there you go. So maybe Breida and Morris get some work on the ground, but there's no doubt. Like, if you tell me Garoppolo is going to throw 40 plus times, maybe 50 times, yeah, sign me up, because
Yep.
the first two opponents to face Kansas City this season have thrown a combined 111 times, 60 times for Roethlisberger and 51 times for Rivers. I'll take that volume all day long. It sounds weird, but over the efficiency, because especially if you're stacking, like, you're just guaranteeing yourself a ton of targets for Kittle and for Pettis. They don't have to be wildly effective. If you throw the ball 50 times, 45 times, the job will get done eventually against the worst defense in football.
Exactly. What did I want to say? Now I forgot it. Oh, my thought process on Mahomes, to sort of wrap up the Mahomes angle that we're on right now. I feel a lot less interested in Mahomes in the big field tournaments, the stuff that's drawing casuals. It's the spot where his ownership is going to be the highest. Like, people see what he's been doing. So in like tournaments like the Millie in particular, that's the spot where I definitely don't want to have the Mahomes shares. Because just like guys like my dad, who could potentially throw a lineup in, are seeing what's happening there. And it's like, oh, I'm going to start with Pat Mahomes. If this is like a single entry at, a $20 single entry tournament or something like that, I think that you can get by with Mahomes because his ownership is probably not going to be as ridiculous.
Right. And no one's looking at Garoppolo because his first 2 games were modest at best.
Yeah.
And one of them came in Minnesota. The other came against Detroit, where Breida had a 65-yard touchdown run. Wasn't necessary. He didn't target anyone on a team more than 4 times in week 2. Through 26 times, they had a very comfortable lead. The game was it was a comfortable lead for San Francisco. So I have no problem throwing that out the window. If everyone's on Mahomes and I'm saying, all right, well, you think Mahomes is going to do that good? If he does do that good, and that's again, we'll close out this conversation. If he does do that good, then that means that San Francisco, with a very quality play calling head coach, might I add, is going to have to find ways to scrap back into this game, and it's going to come on the shoulders of Garoppolo. So yes, I'm very willing to take that risk. That's all.
I have one final NFL question for you before we get out of here.
Sure.
I don't think you'll know where I'm going with it, but you'll understand once I do. What are you going to do with Carson Wentz?
I think Wentz is a decent play because his price point is crazy low. And, interestingly, this Colts team early on has been surprisingly decent on the ground. Their run defense has not been bad. Their pass ranks right in the middle of the league, 16th. I think they're still going to be pretty bad this year in pass defense. They made no additions last year, no notable additions to the secondary, but they have looked better, and they are actually getting a pass rush. So, like, if I didn't love Garoppolo so much, then I'd probably have more Wentz, but I don't think I need to go there. You might see Deshaun Watson blow up too after, that idiot superintendent in Houston made. Did you see that stupid comment he made on Deshaun Watson and put it on Facebook? Thought it was a direct message.
I did.
So maybe Watson's a bit fired up to go out there against the trash Giants team. Like, I think there are some pretty good quarterbacks this week. I will have some shares of Wentz. I
Homer.
think he is yeah, Homer. I think at 6,200 against the Colts at home, it's and another here's another thing. I mean, another factor that plays pretty heavily into any decision making here would be the fact that Jay Ajayi is looking like he's trending towards not playing.
Right.
So they just promoted Josh Adams to the active roster.
Look out.
So like yeah, so Corey Clement and Smallwood and Adams are going to be the guys. I think Wentz is thrown into the fire, right back to where he was. I don't think they would have waited and kept him out 2 weeks if they didn't plan on using him at his full capabilities. So, yeah, and I don't think the quarterback position is that deep. I really don't. Like on week 2, there aren't that many guys that I really love. So Wentz is at least in my player pool, but I have a feeling, say, of 150 lineups, pretty sure I'm only going to have like 3 or 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm trending that direction too. I started paring it down yesterday. I'll get that shortened out quite a bit by Saturday and Sunday. But I think that I'm going to be focusing on just a select few. I'm going to have way too much Ryan Tannehill, which really makes me sick to my stomach, but that seems to be a direction that I'm going.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna to go there. But we'll see. Yeah, it Andrew says something to consider using the playing from behind logic. If it's a close game within a touchdown and 10 points, Mahomes is still throwing too. Of course, but that's not the logic I was using. The
Right.
logic I was using is that whether San Francisco is up, or I'm sorry, whether it's a close game or whether San Francisco is playing from behind, Garoppolo is still going to throw. Forget about Mahomes.
Yeah.
I'm talking just about the other side of this game. That's all.
I'm with you, man. I'm really starting to get excited for week 3. I think week 3 is going to be my week.
Oh, I hope it is, man. Hope it is.
Tune in to everything at awesemo.com to find out if it was. Get a premium subscription.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we got a lot of good content coming up. Oh, and Three Fellas Talking Football tonight as well. It's going to be a fun one. We got a whole lot to talk about. Ben Rasa, Jazz Raz, Andrew Barron, Hot Magic, and myself will go on around 7 o'clock. And we got a lot of great topics for tonight for week 3. A whole lot to discuss and break down and recap.
And I will be producing. And so far, so good on 2 shows today. No issues. Making me happy.
Thank God.
Making me happy. Had to happen eventually. Had to break free from it.
Dude, I'll tell you, the last like 10 days were just the days from hell. Tell me I'm wrong. Like for you, for everybody.
Oh yeah, it doesn't seem like anybody was having a really great stretch last week.
No, I'm talking about just the shows. I'm not even talking about playing. I'm talking about that's
the shows. Like, just keeping track of Slack. It was just like, this isn't working. This isn't working. Hey, is there a show? No. I'm trying to produce from a hotel. I think the hotel just capped my upload speed because I've been hosting 4 streams today.
That's amazing.
Like, what is this guy doing?
What is going on in room 307?
Dude, when they came in and saw a desktop computer and a webcam pointed at the bed, I wonder what they thought.
Right? Yeah. These guys shooting porn videos and live streaming them.
Because we set up my webcam in our room so that we could Skype call the computer. It would automatically turn on, and we can check to see if the dogs were being bad, so that if we were out, we can come back. And I bet the first time the maid came in, she was like, "What the fuck are they doing?"
She's tiptoeing around the room. She doesn't
putting gloves on.
Doesn't want to touch anything.
There's just hair everywhere.
Yeah. Oh man, you should have walked in like just nothing but a towel. Just a towel.
Just a Pat Mahomes jersey.
Yeah, just the Mahomes jersey. I see you found my production studio.
Yeah,
that would have been funny. But no, they probably did throttle you, man. You were like 100%. You were 100% using up. Look, if they're actually tracking like how much is used, you probably were using more than anyone in the hotel combined throughout those couple days
Yeah,
because
yeah,
yeah,
100%. Multiple
right,
gigabytes per show upload speed
right,
or uploaded at the same
yeah,
time. Yeah, I was
yeah,
probably doing more than everyone else added together.
yeah.
I'm
They're
surprised they didn't
checking
boot me
Facebook.
quicker than they did.
Seriously, yeah, you're not just checking Facebook. Like,
I mean, I hooked up the PS4. We were watching Netflix, streaming some HBO. Like I had everything. I brought all of my technology with me. If it was
yeah,
gonna
you were
drown in
rocking, man.
a hurricane, like that's the only stuff I really cared about. I could buy
I
new
know,
T-shirts,
right?
but like I don't want to spend like another $5,000+ on a desktop computer and like recording equipment. That's gonna come with. We're gonna find a way to fit that in the car.
Yep, for sure. No, it was.
I left my
Hey,
Jordans here,
it
man.
worked.
That scared the shit out of me.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, all but one pair.
So you are at your house right now.
I'm
You're
at my
home.
house right now. Yeah,
Okay, well, that's good to know. Oh man,
comfortably, I might add.
good, good.
Got to
Yeah,
sleep
that's
in
good
my
to know.
bed for the past 2 nights, which was very, very nice. I love my bed more than I love most things in my life.
I have you now. We got to get out of here. But have you driven around to like see the damage, to see the extent of everything yet?
I've gone through sections of town. There are sections that I know are really bad that I haven't gone to, and they're sort of I don't. There's no real nice way to say this. There's sections of town that I don't generally go to begin with.
Right.
Um, but I long story short, there's a bar downtown. It's where I met my wife, and the owner of the bar is a close friend of ours. He's actually the guy that married us. He got power back
Oh,
to the
cool.
bar the day that we got back, so he was just opening it up for everybody. So I went down just to say, hey, I know the bar had some damage and stuff, but gave me a chance to go through town. Uh,
Oh, very cool.
Major intersections have been turned into roundabouts with like cones and barrels, just because traffic lights were just out across all of town. Uh, I had to take like really gnarly paths through the city just because there were still power lines down on like general like streets. There were trees just hanging onto power lines. There are power lines just in the road. There's just shit everywhere. And then there's just like tree branches and leaves and all of just debris that's been blown around. So it was this combination
God.
of every street that you normally wanted to go down wasn't totally accessible. There's not really any standing water on roads or anything at this point. Some in like low-lying grass areas, but I mean, lack of power is the biggest issue right now for a lot of people. I know quite a few people that just simply don't have it yet, and
Yeah.
they've been out of it for basically a week now. Ours went out, I think, midday Thursday, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's unbelievable, man.
I mean,
Yeah, so it's been a week. One thing that bothers me, that doesn't bother me, but every time you were to see like a natural disaster, right? Whether it be, you need a big relief effort for an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado or whatever. Um, the media goes down there and they say, "Well, we know that you're Carolinians, and you guys are here for each other because that's what we do in North Carolina. Go out to Pennsylvania. Well, we're Pennsylvanians, and well, Pennsylvanians are there for each other. You go down to Georgia, go to Texas, doesn't matter where you are. It's the same thing, right? It's that same thing where they make it seem like because you're in a specific area,
yeah,
that's why this relief effort is really taking place because we're Georgians and Georgians have each other's back.
yeah.
Like, listen, man, be a good person, be a good neighbor. It doesn't matter where you live. Like,
I'm not
I
like, oh,
just
fuck those
I
people in
always
South Carolina. North Carolina represent.
right, exactly, right. Someone comes up asking you for help, tattered clothes. He's got a trash bag wrapped around his waist. Sir, please, can you spare 50 cents? I've been swept down here from the hurt. Where are you from, son?
Yeah,
Well, I'm from Carolina. Which Carolina? South. Well, you get the fuck off my yard,
yeah.
boy. That that
I can't
that's
have
not
no
how it
Titans
works.
belt buckle here.
Yeah. Like, it's so ridiculous, man. Good people be good people, doesn't matter where you are. I just that the media always finds ways to, I can't think of the word, not glorify, but you know which word
I
I'm
do.
looking for. I
I
can't
do. I know
even
what you
think.
mean.
Yeah. Uh, and they find these narratives. Find these like subplots for everything, and because the truth is stuff like this is really good for the media. It's really good for the news when this is
Phenomenal.
happening. Yeah, it was they like you saw the guy blowing in the wind, like holding his footing, and two people walked right past
That
him.
was here.
What is that where it was?
Yeah, it was in Wilmington.
Ridiculous. I mean,
They don't need to do that. Like, it's actually bad. You don't have to make up the bad
yes,
so that you can stay somewhere that's good.
Exactly. And they just, dude, the ratings are huge on this shit. Look, it was literally 24-hour. When Donald Trump is not being covered 24 hours and it's replaced with that, the ratings are good.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. It's wild. So they're always finding ways to. Oh God, I don't know.
I see one name on my sheet right now. I think we both were on him last week. Mike Wallace. Done.
Yeah.
Broken leg.
Cooked. Tom Niblins. I love when Laffy gets on a roll. Yeah, Tom's been around for a while. He knows I get fired up once in a while.
It happens, man. It happens.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm not talking about shootings or now. I'm talking about hurricanes.
Yeah. Yeah, just like be good people no matter where anybody lives. We just drew random lines on a chunk of land. Nobody's any different because they live on the other side of that line.
Right. Unless you're in California. I don't like them Californians.
I mean, most of eastern Pennsylvania is a wasteland, but we won't neither here nor there.
Right.
I could say that because I'm from eastern Pennsylvania. You guys know how that works. You have to have a tie to it.
Yeah. I love where I live, man. I live like 15 miles outside of Philadelphia.
It's a good
and
spot.
In the suburbs, like Bucks County. It's a nice area. I enjoy it here.
You are in a very good area. You're just close enough to Philly that you can go do fun shit, but just far enough that you don't have like the craziness of it all. I was a bit too far into like areas you don't want to be in eastern Pennsylvania. A lot of coal.
Really? Oh yeah. There's a town, for anyone interested. There's a town in Philadelphia that is literally still on fire and has been for decades now.
Are we talking about Centralia?
Yes, Centralia, Pennsylvania is still on fire. Underground, the entire thing is still on fire. Population 0, and it was because it was a coal mining town.
We took like fucking field trips in school to that shit. It's like 25 minutes from my parents' house.
Oh God, you really did grow up in a wild area.
Yeah, man.
You really grew up near like coal country. Wow.
Dude, they tried to evacuate people, and some people were like, "Nah, we're good." They're like, do you understand what's happening? Like, the entire there are multiple miles of fire underneath you. Like, you're probably gonna die because of this. And they're like, well, my great grandfather built this house, so I don't have anywhere else to be. Like,
this is my land, copper.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous, but it's still on fire.
Yeah, I have been there multiple times. We went there during a science field trip too. There's also a section of a river up there that is completely stopped by trash.
Is that right?
Yeah, they call it the garbage barge.
What are we in Russia?
Unfortunately, God. I think it's just potentially Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania. I don't know.
Yeah. Parts of the Schuylkill and the Delaware aren't exactly pristine.
Yeah, there's a picture. My science teacher at the time has a picture of me just simply laying in what is an island of garbage blocking off this river.
Wait, you laid in it?
Yeah, right on top of it.
That is foul.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's not like rotten banana peels and shit. It's mostly like plastic and solids.
Yeah, it's like not many dirty needles, but hey, you just be careful.
Yeah. It's look. I was 17. I made way worse decisions than laying in garbage. I did that literally and metaphorically multiple times. I think that's about enough. Good luck to everybody driving through Centralia. Make sure that ground doesn't fall in.
Peace.
Later, everybody.